friends and family. Welcome to yet another episode of the community show. Like I always do, I tell you what the community show does. This show particularly is tailored to anchor aspects around issues that affect the community directly. And today we shall focus on the Northern Uganda part of this country. It is quite unfortunate that this episode comes at a time when the country is grieving the loss of a son of the soil, a loss of the son of Acholi land, a son of Northern Uganda, but also above all, a son of Uganda. I think it is rather very unfortunate for us as a country, and on my own behalf and on behalf of the community show, I send our sincere and heartfelt condolences to the people of Uganda for this very devastating and painful loss. Really, it's sad to lose such a person. But we shall maybe spare a second or two towards the end of the show to just get your comments about the legacy of the late Right Honorable Jacob Olanya. Maybe just 2 minutes to each of you to really tell us what you'll remember most about the late speaker. But for today, we shall have a conversation around digital rights in Uganda, but also drawing some focus on the aspect of access to internet in Northern Uganda. We know for sure that the issue of access to internet in remote areas or in areas that are not very close to Kampala tends to be a challenge. So we are here to evaluate the perspective of journalists and how they find this as a challenge, but also the broader sense of general of digital rights in Uganda. So our panelists today are a team of 3 gentlemen and a single lady. The 2 have already joined us. The other 2 will join us along the way. Let me just introduce them right away. The first is Chowoo Willy, all the way from Gulu City. Chowoo, you're most welcome and feel free to say hello to our viewers.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, viewers. Thank you, Mr. Kidega, the moderator. My name is Chowoo Willy. I'm a journalist here in Northern Uganda, basically in Gulu. The news editor at Radio Joyce. At the same time, I call myself a digital journalist. I do a lot of social media work, and that's why I call myself social media strategist. So thank you very much. It's a privilege to have me here and also interact with other colleagues. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chowoo Willy. Next is Frank Oyugi. Frank Oyugi comes all the way from Lira. Frank, you're most welcome.
Good afternoon, viewers, and warm greetings from the great city of Lira. I am a journalist, the managing editor at Radio QFM 94.3 Lira. I am also a writer, a director at TND News Uganda and Great Lakes Center for Strategic Media Studies. My pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. And that is a very good CV over there. The third panelist who has joined us already is Mr. Mark Taibot. Mark is all the way from the West Nile part of this country. Mark.
Thank you so much. As you've already mentioned, my name is Taibot Marko. I come from West Nile region. That's one of the unique regions in this country. That is a cosmopolitan region that has several different languages. Because in West Nile, you find Mali speaking people. In West Nile, you find the Lopara speaking people. You find the Luru speaking people. And you find the Kakwa speaking people. And that's it, where I come from. And yeah, it's a great pleasure to be with you here, sharing with you about the challenges of internet and digital rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start right away. Oh, the fourth panelist is not yet here, but as soon as they join, I will ask them to introduce themselves. But for now, let us begin the conversation. And I'll begin with Chowoo. Chowoo, what is your own understanding of digital rights? Just a general understanding. What do you understand by digital rights in your own view as a journalist?
Okay, thank you. What I was saying, when internet came into force, very many people do not know the importance. But in time, when the technology grew, the internet became the basic, another way of communication. As I talk now, we have 4.66 billion people globally who are very active on internet on a daily basis. Now, internet has become a platform where people interact. Now, if it's one of the platforms where people communicate, it means people have got a right to benefit from what they use. Like here, when you look at the human right perspective, where we are today, the physical human right will benefit from here. Now, when you take it online, according to my understanding, digital rights, the right that people who always interface on internet must enjoy. If I'm using internet, I must enjoy the right, an entitlement, like a kind of. But other question would be, how do I enjoy my right online? There should be some set rules, rule of the game. So basically, that's my understanding. A right for an individual or a citizen participating online to enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Let me go to Mr. Frank. Frank Oyugi, you've heard what Willy says. That is his view about internet and maybe digital rights. Let's just hear from you. What's your own perspective regarding today's conversation?
Good afternoon once again, and thank you, Mr. Moderator, for this session. I think I so much concur with Willy, and let's even take the word rights per se. I mean, to talk about rights, for me as a journalist who, whose tool of trade actually relies so much on the internet and the digital tools, I'll tell you for a fact that my physical rights, so to speak, is nearly the same as in the digital space. So what am I talking about? When I'm talking about digital rights, that means that you're talking about, somebody's right to access to internet, to connectivity, somebody's right to access to information in the digital space. And, when it comes to digital rights, it means that Frank Oyugi is somewhere talking to Taibot, talking to Chowoo, Willy, in the digital space. But even so, they should be able to villages. They should be able to, have protection. So when you talk about digital rights, it means that I have got to have the right to access to information, the right to access to internet. But even when I do that, I should be protected. I should really enjoy my, my rights. So basically, you're talking about digital communication, but even so, somebody should be safe. And I know we shall delve later into some other laws that is constituting our space. But by and large, that's what I can submit. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank. Let me pick the mind of Comrade Mark. Mark, you've heard from our two colleagues.
Yes.
I think it's only fair that you also give us your own perspective.
Yeah, in simple terms, I just want to say digital rights relates to, just like they've said, to access to information. Now, if you have access to information, you can access information via several channels, through radio, written, print, any form of. But now, digital is also another form of transmitting information. So like an ordinary person, an ordinary Ugandan, you should be able to access digital information through use of internet. That's simply what I understand by digital right. I don't know if it makes sense to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that is for the viewers to assess. Mine is basically to ask questions, but I will have a follow-up question for you later on. Let me just welcome our sister who has joined us now, Joyce Adokoracy. Good morning from all the way from Gulu. How are you?
Thank you so much. I am very sorry. Late a bit. I was in for news. I was anchoring, but I'm happy to be amidst you. I am Joyce Adokoracy from Speak FM, Gulu. I think that's it.
Yes.
We may continue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Adokoracy. Just before I let you go, our colleagues here were giving us their thinking and their mind about what they understand about digital rights and also maybe internet in Uganda. Let me also just give you a minute to just tell us what you think about, what's your own view when someone mentions digital rights, when someone says the internet, what comes into your mind particularly?
Okay, thank you so much. Digital rights, according to me, the way I see it in our country, the level is not actually not to the expectation, to my expectation. We may say that there's digital rights. No, we don't have the digital rights because we don't express ourselves freely. We are controlled by something that we don't even know sometimes. Accessing some information is not easy because there's tax, and that tax can limit us from accessing some information. I mean accessing, because if you want to be on internet, you must pay for it. But in other countries, we see that these people are having freedom to access internet freely. Actually, everything is being taxed. And this one can limit some people from joining internet, from joining a digital world because of the money that is supposed to be paid for you to join and access the digital world. And also another issue is if you post something or you use the internet, like you send in some information, you may again fall into trouble. It can lead you to fall into trouble, and you may be subjected to some issues like laws and all that. So I don't see a lot of freedom in our internet here in Uganda, and I don't see the rights being, being used so much here. We may say digital rights, but we don't have it as such. Thank you.
Okay, Adokoracy, just stay there, because you said that the issue of internet, is still very expensive. But I have heard from people who have said that there is actually Oyugi, which is a free government provided wireless service. So isn't government actually trying to avail internet to the people at no cost? But also government, in its move to remove OTT, wasn't that another way of saying, okay, we realized that OTT was impeding access to internet, and therefore there is need for us to remove it, and therefore OTT was removed? So can we say that government is trying its best to increase internet penetration in Uganda, or you want to insist on your earlier argument?
According to what you're saying, the government was trying to get money from the internet users, but that system failed. So it had to shift its direction to another way so that they can get more money from, from the citizens, like in form of taxes, revenue, something like that. So it wasn't intended to say that they are setting us free to have the digital space and also the digital freedom and internet freedom. No, that wasn't it. And if you take a look, up to now, there are some social media spaces that are still blocked. For example, Facebook, people don't access it freely. You must first have to go through some ways to get through it. Some people these days use even VPN. But leaving alone that, when you see the freedom of using internet, it's not as such there. People are scared to access some information, to access or send in some information that are so critical and very sensitive, because you may be arrested. Many people have been put to, they call it cyberbullying, something like that. And this makes people feel like, there are some people who say even they don't want to be on internet because internet has information that can cause them to trouble, can put them into trouble. Okay, so this thing is there, but you can be there when your life is at stake. Your life is at stake. You have to be aware of yourself. You can't be just like that. And some people misuse it to spoil others' reputation. So it's not so good in there, actually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adokoracy. Let me go to you, Oyugi. Oyugi, hope you are hearing me very well. Yes, Oyugi, my question to you is that let me take you back. Okay, no, let me take you slightly into the legal framework of this country. Article 44 of the Constitution of 1995 clearly stipulates the non-derogable rights, and there are only four. Okay, the right to habeas corpus, the right to a fair hearing, freedom from torture, and freedom from slavery. Those are non-derogable rights. So it looks like digital rights are actually not non-derogable. They are given to us by the state, and they are regulated equally by the state. Many of you have focused your argument on, we don't have digital rights, we need digital rights. But if you go to the legal framework, the state actually has the mandate to regulate the rights that are not that are not non-derogable. Okay, they are not inherent. So it looks like maybe we should look at what the legal framework says as well. So, but also my second question to you is that the issue of rights. I also know that the Constitution stipulates that, yes, you have your right and freedom and you can enjoy them. But for as long as you don't infringe on the rights and freedom of others. So is it fair enough to say that, oh, I have a right to access internet, oh, I have a right to post on my Facebook, oh, I have a right to use my Twitter page, but in doing that, I infringe on the rights of others? Isn't that unfair for us to advance that argument? Oyugi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Actually, very interesting and also quite controversial. And I want to appreciate you for highlighting that particular article. But I'll also say that if you look at, I think my favorite article is actually Article 29 that speaks about a raft of freedoms. And among them is the freedom of thought, is the freedom of speech and expression. And for me, I find it interesting. Okay, without any prejudice, think about it. Freedom of thought, that I can think that Chowoo Willy is okay, is stupid. I'm not abusing him. I have the right to think so. If I think that, I have not committed a crime. Okay, let me come back. I agree with you. I also think that, yes, much as freedom of speech and expression is not actually listed among those fundamental non-derogatory rights, maybe it's a high time we amended the Constitution. But also, I think I must commend the framers of our Constitution that if you talk about, just even take, for example, the Access to Information Act that was enacted, I think, 2005. Why? Because they realized that it is actually very prudent that citizens should be able to have a free space to communicate. And that regulation came from Parliament. I think also if you talk about Article 41, it also gives you that access to information. Yes, but I'm also alive to the fact that I think in our quest to enjoy the rights to expression and freedom, there are people who have also gone overboard. I won't mention names here, but every time I go on Twitter, on Facebook, you really find people doing offensive communication. You understand? Yes, why would you wake up and then begin to, talk about your Willy's mother, maybe their privacy, and we see it happening on a daily basis. And I think that has also given the government a leeway to really use some high-handedness and try to crack down on people because we are also, not being responsible. And I could give you, many examples. But also, you also prompted me on the legal, framework in the country. I must say that I'm very disappointed, Mr. Moderator. And for the first time, I don't know whether our members of parliament were really asleep, slumbering in parliament, or whatever it was. The one law that hurts me so badly, that makes me irritated, that makes me flabbergasted, is that particular law or the act you call the Computer Misuse Act. I have reasons. I mean, the state is amorphous. It will always find even the most minute reason to try to clamp down on you. Now, just imagine that right now I have my Samsung, Galaxy A12. I go to my notepad and I write a statement of fact that look here, as a country, we are losing it. Every time you put a budget of 45 trillion shillings, at least 1 trillion shillings is stolen. It goes into corruption. And then somebody will say, you know what, this journalist Frank Oyugi is, tainting government, is blackmailing government. And before you know it, you are arrested arbitrarily, you're incarcerated. But have I said the truth that in this country, 1 trillion shillings is stolen? So I think we need to really look back into the laws and, if need be, amend them in very, very sane manner, because you're not going to tell me that if I tell you a statement of fact that maybe look here, Lira Regional Referral Hospital should be having 49 doctors and millions of them consultants, but you only have 37. I don't want to arrest me, honestly speaking. This is where we go wrong as a country. And I'll tell you for a fact that much as you can load MBs on your phone, we still have a very conscripted space, and basically because of some of the laws we're talking about. My sister Joyce was talking about the OTT tax. Think about it. If we ought to have access to internet, talking about digital rights and access to information, that means, okay, for instance, think about a student sending a document, sending notes to a fellow student, and you're taxing that student without even earning income. I think that was really very unfair on some of government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Oyugi. I invest your mind to some of these institutions. Let me come to you, Willy, your profession, journalism. We have seen something called miscommunication or misinformation by certain people who I would term as bloggers. So it looks like the bloggers are tainting the image of the legitimate journalists and the professional journalists, because at times they get online to the Facebook and post some of these things. Public out there might not have the opportunity to decide. The idea that will be concluded on is that all these are journalists, and they're giving us misinformation and they're misleading the general public. So my question to you, Willy, is that do you think these bloggers have actually tainted the profession of journalism? And if so, how do you think they've done it? Okay,
as I said before, 59.5% of the world population are very active online, representing about 4.66 billion, meaning there are more interactions online. And it's just a situation, opportunities of misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation also, they come in. But that one is also as an opportunity. Like currently, I'm doing a digital training on fact checking as a course. Now, this one offers opportunities for journalists also to enhance their capacity in terms of cross-checking information. Because when you see the society we do work at or for, believe in the work that comes from the journalists. So we could be using that opportunity also to quickly verify and correct what is not right. Citizen journalism in quote or community journalism is encouraged. Now, when you look at the trend with that population online, it means there is a competition between the old media and the new media. Meaning, the journalists need to up their games. Because like, as I talk now, I don't know how many people are following who where, but there are some people who are very influential in society. So some of these people, they pay money to spread misinformation. These are the bloggers, the so-called bloggers, not all the bloggers. Some of them did it or do it unknowingly, keep on sharing those misinformation. So these are things that are coming as a trend, and it's a very big threat to the journalists in the whole world, even in the country where we are like Uganda. I do feel that, yes, since we have so many false information spreading online, and we have a workable legal framework that will try to regulate how this work online and be enjoyed, because we are advocating for digital rights. But now, when the digital right, we should also know there are some limitations. If I post something correctly, that's fine. But if I don't do it correctly, what is the implication? Because the direct effect of society we are at, and then we as an individual who are using this platform. So I look at this like we should not look at this as a competition to journalists, but we should look at it, how can we support the citizen journalism? Government Uganda is saying that they're promoting what they call e-governance. So now how would the citizen access those information online is key. Then two, the city journalists should not be looked at as maybe the pending threats, but it should be looked at, these are people who are looking for information. You see, the problem is, if some information that is not true came out online, and these people who are in charge of clarifying delays become a gospel truth, they will say, okay, this information is real. Sometimes they do it because they're afraid to access the information. Even access information in the public office in Uganda is still a big thing. So people are good at now spreading what we call rumors, so that these people who are in position of those information should come and clarify. So this is a gap that we should not look at the people who go online alone. We should also look at the people who are supposed to give accurate information to people who want it. Like for instance, if a budget of a sub-county came out, how many people within that particular sub-county are in the know of the budget allocation for their own parish? Now, this information are kept in the office and they don't reach people who are supposed to benefit. Now, what will someone say? For instance, maybe, okay, a cow in particular sub-county or in particular county has stolen some money that's meant to maybe repair holes, repair primary school and the rest. So these are the trending threat of communication we're having today. More people who communicate, there are more people who communicate online, but most of them, they are not journalists. We, the journalists, are very few, and most of us do what we call double checking. We verify and we correct quickly. Though some of us also have weaknesses. Some journalists do not have the best of digital tools. They don't have the knowledge of how to basically do fact checking. Maybe how now even to get information from online. How can you use the available tools online to access information for you to verify whether this is not correct or this is correct. So basically, all this one centers about a clear, workable, tested legal framework that will regulate, but it should not be like imposing. Like my friend Frank said, the Computer Misuse Act is being used selectively. What is how can we measure that someone has been annoyed? For instance, I was arrested and charged with offensive communication of something which was true. So it is being used selectively. If someone hates you, whether you have written the fact or not, they will first take you to police, arrest you, detain, and sometimes you suffer there. So we should not look at this, the bloggers, we should not look at them like a very potential threat to journalists, but we can also still work with them. Some of their posts could be having information, but how far can we go and verify that this is the right information? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Willy. I like the fact that you've encouraged the need to work together, because I think it's in so doing that we shall be able to harness from each other's strengths, but also enable us to become better in terms of our weaknesses. So I think that is a good spirit, that we should work together with the bloggers to ensure that at the end of the day, what the fundamental interest is to get the population to access, the rightful information and on time. So thank you for that. Marko, let me come to you. You come from West Nile sub-region. I have just two concerns or two questions for you. One is that speak about the level of internet access in West Nile. That is one. But also, what is the state of digital rights? What do journalists there say about digital rights? Are you enjoying your right to maybe access platforms, online platforms? Are you enjoying digital rights in general? Or you want to agree with what our colleagues are saying, that, oh, you know what, there are no digital rights, and some of these laws are only used by the state to clamor down on people who maybe at times put up information that the state does not agree with. So what's the status in West Nile?
Thank you so much. Just like I said earlier on, my region is West Nile, and it's one of the unique regions that has several different languages. And currently, as a region, we are also hosting refugees. refugees that came from South Sudan, and they are also in millions almost. And this means communication has to be channeled, a media of communication that will effectively favor all this has to be identified. So there we have radios, we have one television, and of course several online platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook, blogs, and the rest. And that's where we disseminate information to the population of that region. Internet use in West Nile is a big challenge. Internet use is a big challenge. One, the reason is that for you to access internet, just like my previous speakers have said, internet, first of all, is not free. For you to access internet, for you to access information on the internet, you need to pay for it. And when you pay for it, that means you pay taxes to the government. Now, the best form of information sharing of late is becoming the online one, because not many people now prefer buying newspapers. Not many people would like to sit on their radios to get information. But since people have got access to smartphones, I think some 2 years back, Uganda Communications Commission did a research and found out that access to phone has gone to some level, and at least majority of the people have access to these phones. There are others who have access to smartphones. There are those who have access to these digital phones. I mean, these are the local phones. I don't know how they call it. But that means access to information through internet is the way to go. But again, now, if you have limitations, one, buying for it is another thing. Two, like my friends already said, that the law that says misuse of computer. Yet, in the Constitution, we are saying Article 29 talks about access, freedom of expression. Now, again, when you talk about digital right, digital is when, yes, one of the components of the digital world is the computer or the telephone or the smartphone that you have. Now, again, if you putting me a limitation on how to use the computer, that means you are again limiting my rights to digital, to the digital right. You are limiting me in accessing information using digital. So in a way, like Frank said, these laws are made, but sometimes here on in Article 29, it is saying you have freedom of expression. Again, somewhere they're saying misuse of Computer Act, and yet we feel that for you to have access in the digital world, you should be able to have a computer, have a phone, and you should be able to use it effectively. Maybe, like Frank said, what needs to be done is amending that act of the Misuse of Computer Act. Because surely, if you're telling me I have access to information, but somewhere again you're saying the Misuse Act, or the Computer Misuse Act, to me it's a limitation. Now, in West Nile, journalists depend on the internet. Journalists depend on the internet. Why? Because for you to work effectively, after gathering your information, after compiling a story, you submit this story or you submit your content using internet. Now, in the event that there is no internet, the use of a journalist, because gone west, you write your article in a paper or in a letter, then send it to the post office, and it reaches the head office, the media house. But now, these days, you prefer use of internet. You compile every information that you have, then disseminate it through the internet, either through email or through WhatsApp or any other form. But this is not the case. For you to have access to the internet, there are a lot of players. There are a lot of players. You have the Uganda Communication Commission. You have the telecommunication providers, MTN, Airtel, and the rest. they all play a part. Also, the local governments play a part, because for you to have access to MTN or internet, I mean Airtel, that means Airtel or internet should be able to establish a site, or should be able to put a mast that in that place. And for them to come to that place, they also come to the local governments. Now, if all these stakeholders do not come together and speak the same language, that means certain places will continue to suffer from lack of access to internet or access to the telecommunication services. Right now in West Nile, like I told you, we are hosting refugees. And right now, the whole world is looking at the refugees. Everybody wants to know what is taking place at the refugee settlements. The refugees themselves have relatives outside. So day by day, they want to follow what is taking place, what is happening. But now, because they are limited, there is no access to telephone, there is no access, to the service providers, internet. That means following them, and the issues that affect refugees are not disseminated. And I can assure you, there are several refugee settlements that have poor networks. Internet there is yet very poor. You cannot communicate. For you to talk on the phone, you need to look for a better place that has network for you to be able to communicate. And for example, just in Germany here, when you go to Ilo refugee settlements, when you go to Mongola, when you go to Maji, and these are refugee settlements that are hosting huge numbers, huge populations of these refugees. Now, we are saying this access to information or freedom of expression and everything is not limited to only the national. It is also to the refugees. Now, if the refugees do not have access to the internet, there is no network, they cannot communicate. That means their rights or their privileges to communicate, to express themselves and do any other thing has been already limited. So the situation in West Nile is not far from other regions. Internet is still a very big challenge. Now, digital rights. Digitally, like I say, for you to access digital information, you need to have a phone, you need to have a computer, and not many people still have access to computers. And if I can speak specifically on journalists in the region, yes, have phones, but now the element of getting internet onto the phone is still a very big challenge. You remember the media landscape in Uganda generally is still not standard. There are media houses that are operating like, I don't know, a shop, because they don't provide all the necessary things that are needed for a journalist to operate like a journalist. A media house is supposed to have computers. A media house is supposed to have, what I have noticed on the ground is there are certain media houses that even limit their staff from accessing their internet. So that's a very big challenge. They only allow the journalists to do their work, leave it on the computer and transmit perhaps, but having access to the internet is also another thing. So the situation in West Nile is still a very big challenge that really needs to be addressed, because many people do not have the access to internet. Their digital rights have been denied, perhaps deliberately or not deliberately. But that's the situation in West Nile.
Thank you very much, Marko. That was very elaborate from you, and many thanks really for enlightening us about the situation in West Nile. Let me go to Joyce. Joyce, my sister, let me just pick it up from where Marko has stopped, and I'll pick up two things. One is the aspect that traditional media and means of communication are being phased out. Things like newspapers, are being phased out. Things like radio, people don't listen to them as much anymore. I want you to speak to two things. One, the economic disadvantage or the economic aspect that comes with the world moving away from traditional media, and going online. Because one thing I know for sure is that media companies used to make, some money out of selling newspapers every day, but now newspapers are not being bought anymore. People just go online to their Twitter, to maybe Google, and just get all the information right there. So they don't need to purchase, newspapers anymore. So how are media companies in Acholi or in Northern Uganda coping up with this new development? How are they compensating? How are they finding other alternative means of making money beyond just selling newspapers and beyond just maybe using radios to communicate, since people now prefer to access information online? So just speak to the economic situation that media houses are grappling with.
Thank you so much, Kidega. Concerning the economic aspect, as you have said it, that newspapers are no longer asked for, and all these things that someone picks and reads. That is out of a digital world. Most people have gone to the digital side of the world. And deep in the villages, we see the villagers don't even think of reading newspapers. They don't even go even digital. They don't go to social media. But those ones still continue listening to the radios. The radio is their way of getting information. And some of them get information from churches, schools, from the districts, from the sub-counties, or from friends. So that is from the village settings. Now, when you come to urban settings, people are moving faster and faster, going away from newspapers. They want the digital world. So solving this issue, like a radio, talking about a radio, the radios have opened up ways of getting people who run away from newspapers through use of the internet, the social media. For instance, Twitter pages that a radio can open up, the website, a radio station can open up that. Even the newspapers also have websites. For example, the New Vision, you can access the news online, leaving alone the hard paper that you will go and buy. You just go online and Google and find the website, then you get to read the news. So that is how we are trying to get them, to get the mass, the people to go through the news and go through other informations that they need to get, leaving out papers out. And some radios have gone online, like online broadcasting, and that is through a digital way. Online broadcasters have captured those who are digitally living, those who have left the newspapers. They have left other places for information, and they are, every time they're using their phones, every time they're using their computers. So getting them is through use of the online radio broadcast for the radios. Like I talked earlier, for the newspapers, they also get them like online paper news information that is got online. I should give an example of what just transpired in Uganda concerning the reshufflement of the RDCs and RCCs in Uganda. The information didn't come from a newspaper. For me, I just got it online immediately. I just saw everything online. And it is the fastest way to get information. And it is the best way to get information. And but if we are again barred from being on internet or having freedom online, we may end up missing a lot of information that comes fast. Now, I'll give an example of a time when there was election. Talking about Northern Uganda here, particularly where I am in Gulu, we faced some big challenge, especially when they were voting for presidency and other, offices like members of parliament. There was no network. And that is when I realized that really, really, it's hard to get information. The newspapers were not helping. They were there, but they also ended there. So let's say, even the newspapers, for a newspaper to be made, it must first get information from the digital world, and then it's printed out. So we see this, the digital world is taking over, the percentage is rising day and night. People are joining the digital world because they get information even when you are deep down in the cave, you still get information. But the challenge that we have currently is that some parts of our world don't have internet access. The internet might be slow or might not even reach there. That's the challenge. But the disadvantage of changing from papers to the digital part, I think I don't see the disadvantage there. I see it's advantageous to leave the newspapers. Now, for those who can still access papers, it's fine, but the information comes to them very, very late. Now, the radio and other medias that have to bring people on board, they get them through online, opening up other platforms, like I said earlier, the Twitter, those other social medias like Facebook and the websites and all that. Those can capture the people and they get to follow you up. Have I answered you, Mr. Kidega?
Yes, I'm saying you've answered me, and thank you very much for that elaborate response.
Thank you so much. To supplement on what she has said, you see, these traditional media houses, say Daily Monitor, the New Vision, from the onset of the transition into the digital world, they were not bogged down to remain there. Like she has said, yes, New Vision, Daily Monitor have introduced the digital online. And now the economic bit of it, what they have done is that for you to access their information and for them to be able to be empowered economically, they have restricted. For you to access the information, you first transcribe or pay for it. And just like Uganda Radio Network has been doing, they have their information online, digitally. And for you to access the information, you'll first read the headline. And if you are interested in the whole content, then you pay something. And after paying, then you access the information. And that's economically, that's what the traditional media houses have done. They have just not left it free, it's paid. I think from now, give it 2 years, you will, okay, not even 2 years, 1 year. Even currently, if you open New Vision online, you will not access all the information. You'll first be told to register and a few other things. But I see with the time, yes, you'll have to pay and access the information. That's the economic transformation bit of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Marko, for that supplement. I really appreciate. Let me go to Frank. Frank Oyugi, thank you for joining us back. My concern to you or question is that government is going online. Most services that government is trying to deliver, it is trying to explore the online platform. What Joyce said, the e-governance systems, and for example, the list of RDCs that was published by the RDC Secretariat was published online. We got to access it even before it was released in today's newspapers. So it looks like even government in itself is trying to go online, e-governance. Just speak to the aspect of what do you anticipate in terms of success? Do you have the necessary infrastructure to sustain the success of e-governance? But also, are the people prepared? Is the population ICT literate enough for them to enjoy government services that will be now provided majorly online, or you think that there are still some things lacking in terms of ICT knowledge, in terms of infrastructure access, in terms of internet access, among other things? So let's just get your opinion regarding e-governance as an aspect of digital rights in Uganda.
Good afternoon once again, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Kidega. If you may, allow me to also speak to the previous issues you raised with my other co-panelists, because I think I needed to just react a bit, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Go ahead, please.
Now, we just don't have the time, but I have got very interesting statistics. I so happen to have published a paper with Afrobarometer. Afrobarometer is the biggest research firm, I think, in Africa. And I did a paper on the media, on the campaigns when Uganda was under lockdown and, curfew and COVID SOPs and stuff like that. So I did a paper on that, and I have very interesting statistics. Like, if I may tell you, in the round 8 survey of Afrobarometer, Ugandans were asked very interesting questions, and you realize that Ugandans don't like to be restricted. For instance, 35% of Ugandans believes that internet access should not be restricted by government. This is figures that were done by Afrobarometer and stuff like that. And when you come to internet costs, that I'll come back to later, but just to give you some figures, you realize that we have the highest, cost as a country in East Africa, like I said before, and I think I have some statistics here, which also did, yeah. So you realize that Tanzania and Rwanda, for you to access, let me see this. Yes, 1 gigabyte of internet in Uganda is at $2.67 US. But you come to Kenya, you come to Tanzania, and Rwanda is at 2.41. So these are some of the interesting statistics that you might want to speak to. Okay, now back to the issue you raised, the government going online. I think I really appreciate, because COVID-19 actually taught us the new norm. Before, we were going into hotels, chewing chicken wings and thighs and drinking cocktails in workshops. But then COVID taught us we could meet on Jitsi Meet, we could meet on Google, we could meet on, a Zoom. It is a new normal. So we need to appreciate the digital space. We are no longer in old stone age. We are in the digital era. That not owning a smartphone or having internet is actually almost criminal. Yes, so I appreciate the fact that right now you can apply for your passport online. I have opened so many companies, TNM's Uganda, One Health Foundation. I do it online with URSD. Now, my only biggest challenge, like I've highlighted, is that if you are a government and you're trying to appreciate that people should be able to access your services online, then you need to consider, the means, the mechanism for people to access such services. You have asked me, Lango sub-region, where I am, Lira City to be specific, we have 9 districts, 9 rural, Lira being urban. And if you talk about infrastructure, let's even talk about electricity, because for you to have a smartphone, you must be able to power it. Now, talk about rural electrification. I can tell you for a fact, yes, there are some districts that have gotten those grids. They pass by the roads. But very interesting that you're going to find a house actually erected 10 meters from an electric grid or pole as such, but then they have failed to tap the power. Now, there are 2 issues. One, you will find there's no step-down transformer, but number 2 is a tariff in this country. We all know for a fact that as a country, we are grappling with umeme. And it's, I think, for lack of better words, some bogus kind of argument that our country signed with umeme. Now, you find people who can't afford even power. The grids are passing right behind their house, but they can't tap power because of the tariffs, but let alone also there are areas without electricity. So if you're talking about infrastructure, we are at a disservice that one, you don't have power. If you have it, you can access because of the high tariffs. Now, talk about the internet cost I've just told you. So all this, when you amalgamate them, it puts us as citizens at a very disadvantaged point. Before I can conclude, you ask about the business model of newspapers. Yes, it is true. Not only in Uganda. Talk about the New York Times. Talk about the Daily Telegraph. Talk about those big, corporations across the world. The truth is that newspaper sales have drastically gone down because of the digital era. Now, for me, it's very interesting that, like I've told you, I am a director at the Northern Daily Publications, TND News Uganda. We are the first digital newspaper in the country. And actually, I wanted to sue government. We all know that right on the eve of elections, internet was shut down. Now, remember that as a digital newspaper, I make money when I share my links on WhatsApp, when I share my link on Facebook, when I share my links on those, marketing platforms. What am I talking about? If you are running a newspaper digitally, of course, but Google, they pay you for those adverts. At that time, I was running an advert from Ministry of Health on COVID-19. Remember, I'd signed a contract with Syndicate Media. I've signed a contract with APU Newswire. So then government shuts down internet. Nobody could access my website. So all these are really, really, really very critical issues. I want to concur with Taibot that people, big companies like the National Media Group have gone to restrict their content. I have thought of the same model that maybe as TND News Uganda, I could go and say, okay, now you can read and say maybe letters about Jacob Olanya, and you want to read, before you read it, you need to pay. But how many Ugandans can let's even say, pay 500 shillings to read the content when they can't even afford internet MBs, when they can't even access power? So these are really very critical issues that even as journalists, we are facing it. I was sharing somebody, if you come along about the urban, you have, I think, a government fiber. But who has tapped it? Nobody has tapped it. Why? First of all, as journalists in Uganda, you can't, I don't know how many owns laptop, because it begins from poor remunerations to so many things. So maybe if we had a resource center and we are tapping this big up internet, we could have some leverage. But as of now, yes, we know there's a government fiber along Obote Avenue or the main street of Lira City, but nobody can tap it. No resource center for journalists where they can sit and work together, no computers. So things are really not very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to Willy. Willy, Willy, my question to you is just speak to the role of the regulating bodies in this country, like the Uganda Communications Commission and Ministry of ICT. Speak about their roles in terms of regulating the digital space and how they have helped maybe journalists to become, more professional and more efficient at their work. But two, I know that journalists have associations. I know of the National Broadcasting Association that is chaired by Kin Karisa. So do you think these associations have played a key role towards advancing the rights and aspirations of journalists, or they are just like any other institution or any other association that is there just to collect membership from its members, but then they don't go ahead to actually advocate for the rights and aspirations of their membership? So those two concerns, and then you can supplement as well. In the meantime, we should prepare. In the meantime, we should prepare our closing remarks regarding this topic. Then I will also get your view regarding the late Right Honorable Jacob Olanya's legacy. So, Willy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kidega. Thank you, viewers. Before I go to your question, I need to supplement what my colleagues have said about maybe e-governance in this country. I believe in statistics, 92.6% of the 4.66 billion people globally have access to a mobile device, meaning 4.23 billion people all over the world use or access internet using mobile devices. That could be mobile phone, laptop, and the rest. In Uganda, according to UCC, people who have smartphone are 29 million. And they said 1 in 2, when you get 2 people, one of them could be having a phone with internet. This provides a very good platform for e-government in the country. But when you look at the infrastructure, let's begin with this one here. A government minister of ICT, I remember some time back they came with the policy of having a fiber connection across the country. But now where is this? Because we have very low internet connectivity. Like as I talk now, my internet is warning me, your internet bandwidth is low. Now I'm in the urban area, like here in the middle of the city. I'm at post office here in Gulu, where the network should have been very stable. There are poor internet connectivity across the country because the money that was meant to improve on internet infrastructure could have gone somewhere to the wrong hands of people. And then two, lack of what we call the unstable and reliable electricity. In Uganda, Uganda is one of the countries in the world with the lowest electricity rate, about 24%. And according to a recent study done by Uganda Bureau of Statistics, indicated that the internet rate in Uganda or connectivity rate in Uganda is only 57%. Meaning 19% are on grid. Then, so if the internet concentrate within the urban centers where there are very few people, because the beneficiaries of all this service delivery we are talking about are in the village. But now if you have the internet connectivity concentrated within the urban area, what service are we offering? It means we are offering to our own, the service provider, the duty bearer. The people who are in the village who are supposed to access this, they are not able. Like my friend Frank said, the tariff, even the connectivity alone is very expensive. Even the money that you should pay, like tariff, is very high. And this one deprives people. I cannot charge my phone. So these are the challenges we are having with the internet thing in Uganda. And even lastly, on that perspective, is the issue of the literacy, the digital literacy. How many people in Uganda are able to use internet without any problem? Of late, I'm happy. The secondary school and even some schools, primary, that try to introduce computer. And now, what about people who are in the village? Are they able to use internet? Yes, the question could be yes, because the people who use phone are many. WhatsApp messages can go across the country, but now the issue of ownership. How many people to sustain? How many people are able to afford? The data rate here, I was looking at the MTN, the smallest is 250, and I give you 30 MBs. What would 30 MBs do? So they are very expensive. For you to use 200 to buy 30 MB in the village, it cannot work. So basically what I'm saying, there is need to come with a comprehensive analysis on how best we can use internet. In Uganda, like Rwanda, if you go to Rwanda, the question is not the same. It's different. So these are basically the things we need to improve on. Then coming back to your question, UCC and Ministry of ICT, yes, I remember several times in a forum where I challenged them. They are not visible here. Let's go to UCC. Who are the people who appoint the authority at the UCC? So they work to impress someone who appoint them. Now, so unless the UCC begin to do that work independently, or an independent body attached to it, it will not help you. The sanitization component is not there. Like in Gulu, they have the regional office, but now how visible are they to people? Do the community know? Even the journalists, most of the journalists have not made official from UCC. You only find them writing letters warning people, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do this. But now, are you on the ground to sanitize people? How some of the media work? Even the media managers, do you engage them? At what level do you always interact with the managers or the owners of this radio station or media houses in the country? So it's just a matter of someone giving a warning every time when we're going to close down. We cannot work like that. We have gone beyond like this level of threatening people here. This is what we call, we need to engage ourselves. I said there's a a chief in communication. We are moving away from this digital age or to what we call collaborative age. I want to be part of the ongoing discussion. Now, how will they empower me to do that instead of stopping me, don't do it? Because people want to know what takes place at that real time. But that gap has been there. So I think the Ministry of ICT, together with UCC, they need to scale up their work. We don't see them here. Yesterday, the Minister of ICT was speaking during the AWE 2020 conference in Kampala. Senator of them said Uganda is fast tracking technology because they want to look at how they can use technology to improve, achieve the vision 2040. But you can't do it from Kampala. We are the tangible beneficiaries. The primary beneficiaries are the people in the village. So these are things that we need to work on as we advocate for the digital rights. As we want to improve our communication via online, we need to work as a team. But we should not look at people who are implementing this as your potential threat or a potential threat to your boss or your colleagues. Then coming back to the National Broadcaster Association or Journalist Association, I think these are the biggest challenge. You hear about, I remember of late, the Uganda Uganda Journalist Association, one of their colleagues called me, they were looking at the Imyoga concept, how the journalists are benefiting on the Imyoga concept. This should have been their work at the planning stage, but they're coming when this government will implement. So there's a big gap. The National Association of the Journalists, they're limiting, they're not doing their work. We have not seen them. Even the hours, like Northern Uganda Media Club, we are more visible than this because we have been getting grants to improve on the investigative work with the journalist skills. The journalists apply for grant, they give grant, they go in the village because you say the houses cannot support it. So it's just, they are just there by name. But when you see at the rate of turnover, the journalists who come in and the journalists who leave, that many, for me, like, I'm among the few guys who have been consistent for the last 18 years. I celebrated my 18 years on the 22nd of February. I can tell the story of for the last 18 years better than anybody. People come, go every, because one low pay, two, maybe the working environment don't look lucrative. Three, the media owners don't value people they recruit. Maybe they want people who have not gone to school, for instance. Let me put this in what, senior 6, senior 4, because you can fire them anytime, and that will partly affected even the output of the work of the journalists, the people they recruit. So the turnover is too much. Look like there's no one who is advocating for the rights of journalists, maybe on the minimum wage. What can be the minimum amount a journalist can get? There are some people who stay 6-4 months without pay, but you need to come and work every day. What are the media association doing at the national level? They're not there. So these are the gaps as we advocate for the rights of journalists, online or digital rights for everybody in this country. We should lift the issue of blame. Unless we throw blame games away, we shall not be able to realize vision we are advocating. Just us. We can do it for us. No one can do it for us. And us are the journalists. That's the one in leadership, not everybody. For those who are already in leadership, let's scale our, let's come up country. Let's have good work. I think that's what I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said, we are going to the concluding remarks. And because this is a month of the women, I will begin with Joyce. Joyce will give us her closing remarks first. Then I will go to Marko. Then from Marko, I will go to Frank Oyugi. Then I'll conclude with Chowoo. You have just 1 minute to give us your last words. So let's have them right away.
Thank you so much. My last remarks concerning this cohort is that if the government and the associations that are fighting to see that there's freedom in using internet and also having the digital rights in Uganda, if they are doing so, they are really slow into it. I think this could be maybe technological knowledge and all that, You know, Uganda is not like the first world country. It's a third world country, but it's going slowly by slowly by slowly. I believe if they are doing it, then they should continue doing that. But if they're not doing it, then they should have to start doing it. Set up policies that govern the digital rights like that everybody gets to know, and that is through sensitization. And then also getting journalists, you know, the journalists really use it so much in sending information, making information to the people. So they should also have a way of bringing journalists on board to help them know how they should use the digital spaces. And then the issue of having taboos to talk about, like taboos that a journalist should not talk about. For example, taboos like not talking about the president family, not talking about the military, not talking about something that's so sensitive. Those taboos, they should also find a way of making them easier, making it easier for journalists to mention, because we sometimes self-censor ourselves because we find it difficult to talk about such. Talking about the demise of our speaker, the late Jacob Olanya, I would say he was a very good man, social, very social. I've never met him personally, but looking at how he was socializing in the community, he was like among the people, something like that. He comes in a community and socialize with them. Giving an example, when he was in Apa, he could share food together with the locals, and that was the spirit he really had. And he was always a man of peace. He advocated so much for peace, and we shall really, really miss him so much. I would say that may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Frank Oyugi, you can give us your last words regarding today's topic and also the legacy that you remember about the late Right Honorable Jacob Olanya.
Thank you, Mr. Kidega, our moderator, and good afternoon, viewers and fellow panelists. I think my parting shots is more of advocacy. I must really assert this, that Northern Uganda, just like any other upcountry part of the country, should be treated with, utmost consideration. So to speak, I would say, like, we need to have a bit of an affirmative action. And I know Gulu already has Nothern, which has a resource center, but if Center for Constitutional Governance can do some advocacy for this part of the country, I would be very glad that maybe Lira City, to start with, has a resource center where journalists can converge together, that maybe even Chowoo, Willy, if Taibot can come from West Nile, is doing his job, he can walk in, sit on a computer, render his video, send to Kampala. Yeah, because right now you can't do without those gadgets in this digital era. So that is my biggest advocacy, that we need a resource center for journalists who may not be able to afford a phone, but they can be able to access internet. Also, Willy said something very important. I wasn't able to react on that. Disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. We are right at the center of all this. Like yesterday, SEC was meeting to discuss and decide on who should be fronted for speakership in Parliament. I tell you for a fact that many of my colleagues, both in the media space, civil society, and friends who know me, were calling me, frankly, journalists, you have connections, can you verify for us this? So you realize that we are really at the epicenter of information, and people want to know from us. Anybody can post anything, but if Frank Oyugi posts something, they'll take it for a fact. But the other angle is that most times when you communicate something, we are also attacked. You understand that you could be posting something very genuine, but because the other party doesn't like you, the messenger, they come to shoot you. So my other recommendation is that as journalists, we need a lot of psychosocial support in terms of mental health. We are really affected, and this really we need support on this. And I think that should really, come through. Talking about the late speaker, Jacob Olanya, it's quite nostalgic for me. It's quite, it's saddening. And like Joyce, I had the privilege to meet the speaker, not once, not twice, but on many occasions. I covered him on his campaign trail. And I will say this, that the Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, and may he rest in peace, was a man of great stature. He had a pedigree. He was, in fact, I think he wasn't a politician. I think he was a leader. I covered his campaign trail in Oyam. He was campaigning, for the sake to be specific, against the Honorable Samuel, also my friend. And the then Defense State Minister, who is right now the State Minister for Gender and Labor, so Development, Okele Ngola, is a brother of Ngola Samso. And Jacob Olanya sat together with one of Machidogo, Okelo. He had humor, I can't even describe, but he maneuvered this ground and he got the vote. The last time I met him was at UTC Lira. Remember that time there was rumors that the government, the NRM to be specific as a party, had given money to UPC, and NRM MPs were so bitter. Jacob came to UTC, met the MPs among the ministers, I can name names, and he told them, you are here bickering about small money, but look here, your party gives you this, your party gives this, and in the end, people made merry, people were consoled. So Jacob Olanya was a leader. He was a patriot. He was a nationalist. We shall really miss that great man. And for me, the saddest thing is that for all that he fought for, he never completed his term. But God above all, he knows better. May he rest in peace.
Yes, thank you very much. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And my concluding remarks is that one, you did ask Willy about some pertinent issues, the role of Uganda Communication Commission and the Ministry of ICT. In my view, these two ministries or departments always surface when there is a problem. They are not there to help us, the journalists. They are not there to help the station do their mandatory role that has been enshrined by the law. One, why I say this is because some years back, one of the local FM stations in West Nile was trying to establish their second radio station. But it took them close to 5 years to establish this radio station. Why? Because of the bureaucracies created by Uganda Communications Commission. Secondly, the Ministry of ICT seems to be coming out when the issues, when the likes of Champaza, the likes of Stella Nyanzi write things and post things on social media, which they claim to be abusive, is when they are vivid and they are visible. But when these kind of situations are not there, they are not on ground, they are not seen, they are not. For me, it's a disservice to this region, it's a disservice to the people of Northern Uganda. So it's my appeal to them is that they should wake up. They should do something to routinely, as mandated, to check of this region also. So that, yes, we also comply and things are done to the to standards. Then secondly, Willy mentioned something that is very critical also, to do with media houses and the competence of the people in the media houses. Not everybody is an IT literate. There are people who have graduated, they have degrees, but when they come out, they come very raw. They do not know much about internet use and the rest. And that explains why perhaps most of the radio stations in the region prefer now doing comedy shows, because there is no content that they can take on air. And why? Because they are limited. they don't have a computer, you don't have internet, you don't have where to get. So there's a way you need capacity of also these media practitioners from various media houses, also including the media houses, because if the capacity of this to be able to do research, and research that will be very scientific, that will be disseminated, that whenever they go there, and then they'll be able to present. But now, where you have limitations, what next? The next option is to go make comedy and the rest. So, like my friend Mugabe Frank has said, there is need to advocate for more trainings for these media practitioners so that they learn certain tools that are required to do that, to be able to bring better content to air. Generally, West Nile region, like other regions, is suffering. The internet is a problem, and also the digital rights seems to be a big problem. Just said, a lot of villages are really suffering. They do not have access to, so they are also human beings. They need to be helped. There are several settlements that do not have network for even this mere communication, telephone communications. So if that is a problem, that means also the internet and the digital rights is being suffocated. Now, coming to the late for Speaker Jacob Olang, as many people have already said, Jacob Olanya is a very vocal man, is a man of development, is a man who associates with everyone, cross-cutting, regardless of the religion, regardless of your political party, regardless of where your skin color. Olanya is one person who reached my district, my home district, in 2018, and that's Obong district. Obong district was created together with Omoro district. And why I remember him vividly was because when they were creating Obong district, there were a lot of issues of secession, because there's a part of Obongi that say they would not want to be part of Obong district. They would rather want to remain part of the mother district. Then it was the same Olanya who came on ground and told the people the position of the law, saying the law is very clear. He was the one who chaired the session to create the 15 districts. It was around 15 districts that were created. So functionalizing them was done in phases. So he told the people of Obong that nobody should deceive them that part of Obong will be left out, part of Obong will either want to remain in the mother district. Why? Because for that to happen, it will require another similar sitting with the same quorum to be able to debate that. So because of that, I really remember him so much, and his death is so regrettable, because as the community of Obong, who are still expecting him back to now come and celebrate with the people of Obong after now the creation of the district in 2019. But this is very unfortunate. God said his plans are his plans. They are not our plans. Olanya, the last few days I've been following about his stories. I've been to his family, I've been to his home. He has left a lot of projects that are unfinished. Now I don't know how these projects are going to finish. He had a vision of establishing a radio station in Omoro, a TV station in Omoro. Now these visions are all gone. As a media practitioner, because that vision of creating a radio and a TV is what will be envisaging to see that it's past or it is done. But now it is gone, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we leave that to God. And for me, I also say, like many people say, may his soul rest in peace. Thank you so much.
Yes, Willy, the floor is yours, Mr. Willy.
Thank you. My quick recommendation is need to form a network of national and regional actors. This one could be the Association of the Journalists to have advocate for digital rights. Two, the UCC and the Ministry of ICT should come out to do awareness campaign. One, on how to protect the digital rights. Two, on how to also tell people some of the disadvantages if you misuse the platform. They shouldn't wait until when someone become a victim, then they will come out. And then there's need also to do more on the policy on internet use in Uganda, because people look like, hey, this thing is now free. What? Let me go and use whatever I want. So the policy should be very clear on how best someone can use internet. And then civil society organizations should come to promote what we call reasonable use of ICT in Uganda. Because if we don't take responsibility for whatever we use, we can become a victim of so many other things here. So basically, within that, I think if CCG can come in to support media, especially training them on the use of digital tools and digital safety, because many journalists have become victims of circumstances. They don't know. They're arrested. Sometimes they cannot use the digital tool well. So creating a gap in what we call data journalism. How many of us can analyze a budget to the simplest unit that a layman in the village can understand? So if the training can be set around that, it can improve on the capacity for the journalists, develop their skills, and also to bridge the gap the listeners, the viewers, the readers, and the journalists. Then lastly, to my good friend, I knew about Olanya in 1996 when I was still a young guy in primary school, when he was contesting for the position of LC5 for the Greater Gulu district. He contested together with the late Colonel Chowoo, and they were three in the race. So he came in with another mathematics out of the 4 division, subtraction, multiplication, and addition. It came with what we call the Chura of Lanyuan, that sometimes we call Lanyuan, decisive political kind of mathematics. I don't know. So I started working with him right away from 2004 to the time he died. I remember I talked to him on the 7th of December when he came to Gulu, and on the next day, I was maybe, I don't know how the media, because I don't know how many time I covered him, but whenever he's coming out country, he would like to meet the journalists. I was the first person to be contacted to mobilize for him a press gathering and press briefing. Maybe if you have some party with the media, I was the one in charge. Then also, he pledged to use the expertise within the Parliament of Uganda to train journalists as in regard to building their capacity at Northern Uganda Media Club. Yet. This thing is still unfinished, unfortunately, has left before. So personally, I know him as someone who look at the youth of Uganda today as the generation to take this country far. I was looking at youth when we empower the youth, so they will be the one to drive this country to where we want. But unfortunately, they do not live to his dream. I look at him as a man who loves his culture. He's a guy who loves his tradition. Whenever we used to organize Acholi, a cultural festival every year, will come, participate, contribute, dance, together with his colleagues, Alphonse, Shigamoy Window. So I look at him as a man of people. That's why when he was campaigning, he developed a slogan, down up and down, a man of people. He's always with his people and he stood for his people. I look at a man who is very principled and is organized. You cannot go and get him when you are not organized. Very principled and organized. You want things to be done orderly. Then I look at him, someone who was very knowledgeable and supportive. With that, you can see how he has united the whole parliament, the cabinet, the parliament, and then the judiciary. You don't hear them clashing here and there. You only give time to people to speak on the floor of parliament. It doesn't take side, this and opposition, this belongs to a government, so long as you are raising an objective point. So I look at him as a man who, a man of peace, love, and unity. And besides, he used to love the journalists so much. May his soul rest in extent of peace. Amen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, our panelists, from Comrade Willy to Comrade Frank, my sister Comrade Joyce, and Comrade Marko. Thank you very much for sparing the time to be a panelist on the community show. I am sure that our viewers have learned so much from you. I have personally learned so much from all of you, and I appreciate you for sparing the time. To our viewers, thank you for always joining us on the community show. Until next week, see you. And on my behalf and on behalf of the community show, we continue to pray for the soul of the late Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament to rest in eternal peace. As you know, you've said it all about him. Thank you and see you next week. Bye-bye.